My name is Dolly Warden, and I'm a librarian and also a storyteller, and I have a story to share with you today. It's called Captain Cat. It is by Inga. Captain Cat loved cats. There were more cats on board his ship, the Carlotta, than there were sailors in his crew, which was why his sailors called him Captain Cat. After a hard day, there was nothing Captain Cat liked more than to settle down comfortably in his cabin with his cats. He would take out his maps and charts and study them, dreaming of wonderful places he longed to visit. Of course, he had visited lots of places already, but these were mainly trading ports, because that's what Captain Cat was, a trader. Trader, not traitor, trader. It has to be said that Captain Cat wasn't really a very good trader. Trading is a bit like swapping. You swap something you don't want for something that you do. Only what Captain Cat wanted more often than not was a cat, which was how he ended up with so many cats. All the other traders laughed at Captain Cat. Just look at him, they would say, as they watched him hand over some priceless vase for another moth-eaten tabby cat. Ha, 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 ha. No wonder he never makes any money, they would say. Then one evening, as Captain Cat sat studying his maps, he suddenly felt the time had come at last for him to see those wonderful places he had always longed to visit, and that if he didn't go now, he never would. So the very next morning, when he left the harbor, instead of sailing east to the trading posts, Captain Cat sailed west. The other traders scratched their heads, wondering where on earth he was going. Silly old Captain Cat, they said, as they watched him, the Carlotta, disappearing into the distance. For days, Captain Cat sailed under a sky as blue as periwinkle. Then the winds shifted. Inky black clouds appeared over the horizon, and all he could do was to batten down the hatches and hope for the best as the Carlotta pitched and rolled through the mountainous waves. The sky was dark, and it was hard to tell day from night, or for that matter, night from day. By the time the storm was over, Captain Cat ended up miles off course. In fact, when he checked on his chart, to his surprise, he had been blown right off of it, off his course, a good 6 inches over the lower part of the left-hand edge, which meant that while he wasn't lost exactly, Captain Cat sailed on an unknown sea. He was just beginning to wonder if he would reach the edge of the world when all at once he came instead to a remote and lonely island. Hooray, cried the Ocean Queen of the island when she saw she had a visitor. And she rowed out to meet Captain Cat in her boat. But of course, not only did she meet Captain Cat, she met his cats as well. Now there were no cats living on the island. Indeed, the Queen had never seen a cat before. "What dear little things," she cried, and she insisted that Captain Cat bring one of them along with the handsome sailors in his crew to lunch at her royal palace. The Queen's mother, the Prime Minister, the Lord Chancellor, and the Mayor, everyone who was anyone on the island had been invited to attend. But no sooner had they sat down together than the soup was brought in, and then out from behind the skirting boards of the royal dining room propped hordes of hungry rats. The Queen's footman tried to fend them off, but the rats were too quick. Up on the table, legs they shot, and in among the soup plates. "Oh," cried the Queen, turning bright red with embarrassment. "Those horrible, horrible rats." "Don't you fret, Your Majesty," said Captain Cat, and he went outside to the royal courtyard where his cats were having fish for lunch. "Why have fish," he said to them, "when you can have rats?" Once they had got rid of the rats in the dining room, the rats got to work on the rest of the royal palace. And when the sun set, not a rat was left alive there to see it. "Oh, well done, you clever, clever cats," cried the Queen with delight as she inspected the neat rows of corpses lining up on the royal palace floor. But it wasn't just the royal palace which was overrun with rats. It was the whole island. The Queen took the Captain Cat to the royal treasure room, the chamber. "See this," she said, waving the careless hand over sparkling diamonds, pearls like golf balls, and rubies big as eggs. "Take as many and much of this as you want. Take all of it if you want. Only please, oh please, dear Captain, let me keep your cats." So what did he do? Captain Cat gave his cats to the queen in exchange for the fabulous treasure. Well, yes, he did. Actually, some of her fabulous treasure, at least just enough to make him very wealthy. But before you cry, oh, how could he? Didn't he love his cats? Let me tell you, it was the cats themselves who had the final say. They made it quite clear where they wanted to be, and it was not on the Carlota. They had been living on that little ship too long, and then after enjoying the freedom of the island where they could do what they wanted, where they wanted, and when they wanted, they refused to go back on board. Won't you change your mind, the queen said hopefully, and stay here with us? Both she and her prime minister had grown rather fond of the captain. But alas, Captain Cat would not. There were still those wonderful places to see, and he had always dreamed of visiting. Well, you know where we are, said the queen. And so after one long, last tearful farewell to all his cats, Captain Cat sadly sailed away. But the story doesn't end there. Not at all. If anything, this is where it really gets good, for without his cats, Captain Cat found him seeing the world was not much fun. And so he sailed back to his home port, where he began to unload his treasure. How did you get all that? The other traders asked him, staring goggle-eyed at the sparkling diamonds, pearls like golf balls, and rubies big as eggs. And when Captain Cat told them they very neatly fainted on the spot. Then what do you think those traders did? They sailed away to find the island for themselves. For as they said, if silly old Captain Cat could get some jewels like that for a bunch of cats, think of what they could get for their fine wares. Naturally, the queen was delighted to have the traders turn up on her island with boats full of wonderful gifts, with bangles and bracelets and necklaces, a new crown to wear, fabulous silken cloth in every color of the rainbow, and what she had made up immediately in raw skirts for more, one for each day of the week. Oil paints to paint with, books to read, curly-toed slippers, boxes and boxes of delicious, delectable Turkish delight, kites to fly, bicycles to ride. There was no end to the gifts the traders simply showered on the queen. And to think they brought them all that way just for me, she said to her prime minister. We must think of something really special to give them in return. Which is exactly what they did. The traders were waiting to load their ships with all the treasure they were expecting. I'm afraid your gifts are not quite ready yet, the queen said. A few days went by, and still the traders waited. Not long now, said the queen, and they waited and waited. "Nearly there," she said, after another few days. "There must be an awful lot of treasure," the traders thought. "If it's taking this long to count it out." And they imagined the piles and piles of diamonds and pearls and rubies, and getting bigger and bigger as the days passed. Finally, the queen said, "Here we are at last." But where was the treasure? There was none to be seen. There was only the footman carrying a basket. "May we present to you," said the queen, bursting with pride and pleasure as the footman handed the basket over to the puzzled traders, "our gifts, the finest our island has to offer. These little gems, worth more to us than diamonds or pearls or rubies. Aren't they just adorable?" And there on a cushion in the basket sat 6 of the sweetest little kittens, one for each of the traders. Those poor traders could not have been more disgusted. Why, they took the kittens home and gave them to Captain Cat, which meant Captain Cat had his cats back again, or rather his cat's cats. And then he felt like sailing more than ever. And so he got to see those special islands and wonderful places after all that he had always dreamed of. But not a single one of them measured up to the remote and lonely island, which, as well as being very beautiful, was where his heart was. And so in the end, Captain Cat returned. "Hooray!" cried the Queen and the Prime Minister when they saw their old friend again. And surrounded by his cats and his cat's cats, and later on his cat's cats, Captain Cat lived happily ever after. The end.